Hey boys and girls, it's Miss Foster. This is our last lesson on digraphs. Let's review. TH says th. CH says ch. SH says sh. And WH says w. Today, we're going to look at different pictures and decide which chunk goes either at the beginning or at the end of words. Let's get started. The first picture is a chair. What do we hear? Chair. We hear the CH at the beginning of chair. Our next picture is a fish. What do we hear at the end of fish? We hear SH. Our next picture is a bush. What do we hear at the end of the word bush? We hear the sh blend. Our next picture is teeth. What chunk do we hear at the end of teeth? We hear the TH at the end of teeth. Our next picture is bath. What do we hear at the end of the word bath? We hear the th sound at the end of bath. Our next picture is a chin. What do we hear at the end of the word? At the beginning of the word chin? Ch. We hear the CH. Ch. Our next picture is chips. What do we hear at the beginning of chips? We hear the ch sound. Our next picture is shop. What do we hear at the beginning of shop? Shh. Good job. Our next picture is wash. What do we hear at the end of the word wash? The next picture is shake. What do we hear at the beginning of the word shake? We hear the sh sound. Our next picture is chick. What do we hear at the beginning of the word chick? We hear the ch sound. Our next picture is whale. What do we hear at the beginning of the word whale? We hear the w sound. Remember, you blow out air when you say w. Our next picture is inch. What do we hear at the end of the word inch? We hear the ch blend. Our next picture is peach. What do you hear at the end of the word peach? You hear the ch sound. Our next picture is a picture of a beach. Again, what do you hear at the end of beach? We hear the ch sound. Our next picture is flash. What do we hear at the end of the word flash? We hear the sh sound. Our next picture is push. What do we hear at the end of the word push? We hear the sh sound. Our next picture is thick. What do we hear at the beginning of thick? We hear the th sound. Our next picture is white. What do we hear at the beginning of white? White. Our next picture is shapes. What do we hear at the beginning of shapes? We hear sh. Our next picture is wheel. What do we hear at the beginning of wheel? wheel. Our next picture is third. What do we hear at the beginning of third? Our next picture is lunch. What do we hear at the end of the word lunch? We hear the ch at the end of lunch. Our next picture is church. Look closely. We need to learn and find out what is at the end of church. You hear two of them, ch, ch. You hear the ch at the beginning and the end of church. Our next picture is where. What do we hear at the beginning of where? Where. Our next picture is mother. Mother. This chunk is in the middle of the word. M-er. We hear the sound. Our next picture is thorn. What do we hear at the beginning of thorn? Thorn. Our next picture is bench. What do we hear at the end of the word bench? We hear the ch sound. This is a picture of a whisk. What do we hear in the word whisk? We hear whisk. Our next picture is ship. What do we hear at the beginning of the word ship? We hear the sh sound. Good job, boys and girls. That's it for today. Remember, SH says sh, TH says WH says w, and CH says ch. Have a good day, boys and girls.